Hey guys, it is MissSimReno. If you are returning to the channel, welcome back. And if you are brand new, I am very excited that you decided to join me here today for another speed build. And this is my first spooky build of the season. I really came to the realization that it was October, maybe about a week ago, and I was doing a lot of fall inspired builds. And that's really just because the leaves are starting to change where I live. It's kind of odd. There were a handful of trees that changed really early and they're already bare, and now there's like a whole group of trees now as well that is finally turning. And then it hit me, I was like, wait, it's October, like Halloween is this month. So I decided that I had to start doing some spooky builds, and this is my very first one, and I am ecstatic to share this one because I decided to revive an old Sims townie favorite, at least for me, like one of my favorite townies from the original Sims game. So if y'all played Sims back in, what, early 2000? I don't even remember when the first Sims game came out anymore. But if you remember crotchety old Agnes Crumplebottom, let me know down in the comments, because Agnes was probably my favorite townie. And if you guys are not familiar with her, she was like this pointy, crotchety old woman who lived in whatever the main Sims world was. I don't even remember what it was called anymore, but she was an elder and she dressed like really conservatively in all black all the time, and she had this purse and she would be walking around like community lots and stuff, and if your Sims were displaying any public displays of affection, she would come over and she would whap them over the head with her purse and she would yell at you. That was her whole gig. And when I first played The Sims 1, I just thought it was like a funny little quirk, like just a funny little thing that they decided to throw in there. But if you actually jump to The Sims 3 timeline, is it The Sims 3 timeline? Yeah, The Sims 3 timeline, where she is actually a adult or a young adult or something like that, and she lives in this big old mansion all by herself, and you come to the realization that her husband passed away. And actually there are a few gravestones, I believe, in her yard, like on her property, so maybe she had a few husbands pass away, I'm not quite sure. There's also a half-finished nursery, which is, like, arguably very sad, so I'm not gonna, like, tiptoe around it. Like, her story is very sad. I love Agnes Crumplebottom, and I love The Sims 4, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to bring my favorite townie, Agnes, and I'm going to bring her into The Sims 4, which I'm sure a few people have done as well, but I wanted to reimagine Agnes as a spellcaster, and I went to Forgotten Hollow. I almost called it Forbidden Hollow. Actually, I probably did in another take of this voiceover. But I decided to go to Forgotten Hollow and build kind of like this run-down, not very taken care of, large-ish Victorian home. I don't even know if you would consider this large, but to me it was kind of a big house. There's a lot of rooms in it, but I end up covering it with like tons of ivy. It's got an insurmountable amount of like cracks and stains and just like everything growing up the sides of it. The windows are cracked, they're all dirty, like it is honestly not taken care of whatsoever, and everyone thinks that it's actually abandoned, except for at night when they can see like some candles glowing in some of the windows. They never see anyone come in or out of the home at all, but they're very, very curious because they know that old Agnes Crumplebottom used to live there, and they weren't sure if she passed away from grief when her husband passed and potentially her child passed, or it was kind of like a dream, like they didn't have a chance to have a child, something like that. I don't really know. It's not a happy story, so just bear with me, but my thought was that she still lives in this home. This was the home that her and her husband purchased back in the day when they were thinking of like starting their family, and his untimely death just completely kind of threw her off her rocker. She just became very, very crotchety, very, very, I don't know, intolerant of happy couples and families and stuff like that. And you guys will see, but I kind of tried to tie that into the home a little bit more when we get onto the interior, but that's pretty much the backstory. And I wanted her to be a spellcaster just because I thought it would be a little bit of a twist, because Agnes, a lot of people didn't really know her backstory. And the reason that I know it is because I watched Plumbella's The History of series, and I think she did one either on like the entire Crumplebottom family or it was just on Agnes herself. And I was blown away, literally had no idea about any of that in regards to her backstory. And I felt as though she had this secret. It wasn't just the secret of what happened to her family and kind of like these lost dreams, but that she also had this pent up like magical ability and she could only show it off within the comfort of her own home. Maybe back when she was younger, magic folk weren't as tolerated or something like that. Like she would have been completely demonized. I don't know. And she's like a very powerful witch, and she was only able to really show her abilities around her husband. And she was so excited to just be with someone where she could kind of be herself, and she was excited to start a family with them. And here she is now without that family that she always envisioned, but I think she still has a very kind heart, and I just can't wait to show all these details inside the home. But as you can see, we are working on the landscaping, which I always find really difficult in Forgotten Hollow because everything's dead. Everything's dead and or dying, and I just didn't really know what would look okay, so I did struggle with it a little bit, but hopefully you guys think that it fits in with the world and that it, I don't know, just kind of resembles the world around it a little bit more, especially because I used these higher shrubs from the debug menu, I believe from Get Together. They're just kind of a darker green, which I thought would fit a bit more in this world, and I wanted to use some of these barren trees because unlike the season that I'm actually building in, I took screenshots and everything in fall, so all of those nice green shrubs I came to realize were actually completely barren as well, but I thought they were kind of a nice touch to add to the need for privacy because there's this big high iron rod fence, but if there weren't any like shrubs in front of it, it would look really odd. I don't know, it would be very open to those passing by. But now we're working on the interior, and I actually think that her house is very, very cozy. I feel like Agnes is just misunderstood, and even though she kind of takes out her frustrations on the world, she is very at peace and kind of very happy when she's at home because, I don't know, she feels closer to her husband and what she could have had in regards to like having a family if he hadn't passed so suddenly and so soon. And to be frank, I actually don't really know what happened to him. I don't know if that's part of the backstory, if we ever actually do find that out, or if we know that in any way, shape, or form. If you guys have theories, definitely let me know too, because I have my own theories as well. I don't think that she had any part in it, but I just think that maybe tragedy was something that had always followed her around, and it did not stop when she found her husband. But we are working on finding like wallpapers and flooring here. So I chose this flooring because it looks very weathered. I think this was from Spooky Stuff as well. And the wallpaper looked a lot older too. So I think she has left this completely unchanged from when her husband was alive and they were living here. The only thing that has changed is that everything has gotten older. So I actually do a lot of the cracks and those kind of details, holes in the walls, that kind of stuff. I do a lot of it off camera because let me tell you, it took so long, like so long to do because I wanted it to work with where I placed decorations and I didn't want it to be too overdone, but there's also tons of cobwebs, so I don't think she really dusts or cleans at this point, just because now she's an elder. That's how I made her in the game, at least. I was kind of trying to literally remake her from the first Sims game, so she's an elder, and it's kind of a miracle that she can get up and down the stairs at this point. I feel like she rides her broom. That might be a little eccentric, really going down that spellcaster vibe, that spellcaster lane, I should say. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of a miracle she can get up and down the stairs still and really navigate her home. I just don't think that she has time or energy or the ability to really clean. And clearly, people think that this is an abandoned house in this neighborhood, or, you know, in the other worlds they've heard of the abandoned house in Forgotten Hollow. So it's not like she has a hired cleaner to come in and help her actually dust and keep things up inside the home. But I don't know, do you guys kind of like that story? Because I thought it was kind of neat. I was really excited to the point that I was sharing screenshots of good old Agnes on the front porch of this build over in Discord and over on the community tab here on YouTube. I just thought it would be so neat to revisit one of my favorite townies, and I mean, nostalgia is very powerful, let's be real. But here I am trying to add some of the crack and spiderweb details, the holes in the wall. I wasn't thinking that this was from any kind of like magical incident, which I suppose it could be the more I think about it, but I think it's honestly just because the house has taken damage over the years. And again, Agnes doesn't have the energy, nor does she want to involve anyone from outside of her little bubble, which is essentially just her, to come in and do any kind of repairs. She could probably repair it with magic, because I think there's actually, I mean, technically there's a spell that I think has to do with repairing things, but in game, for gameplay purposes, it's really just when something actually breaks, like if the toilet's out of order or something, but I don't really know. But here I am working on a little sitting room. So there was the front entryway where there really isn't too much going on. I think I actually even replaced that rocking chair with one of the high-backed armchairs from Cats and Dogs, just because it looked a little bit older and maybe a little bit more of Agnes's style. And this sitting room just has two little love seats, and I think I gave her the little, it almost looks like a megaphone. I don't really know what it's called. I know there's probably a proper name for it, but it's kind of the older looking quote-unquote stereo. I put it on this little coffee table, so maybe she sits in here drinking like tea or something, just muddling over, you know, the kids these days. I have no idea. And she kind of just listens to like an older radio station, or maybe I'm kind of thinking like in Harry Potter, there's the wizarding like radio station or network. Maybe she listens to that. I kind of wish we had something like that in The Sims when we got Realm of Magic. That actually would have been really cool. But in this hallway here too, I have a console table, and I do decorate it with a few different clutter items. And I was thinking that that little angel statue, which is from Vampires, by the way, so if you guys don't have the Vampires pack, actually, sidebar with that, if you don't have that, even if Vampires aren't really your playstyle, the items that we got with that pack and Forgotten Hollow, even though I don't play here or build here very often, we got a really, really good pack with that one. Just FYI, if you don't have it, I think it would probably be worth exploring, especially because I believe that there's a sale right now for Sims packs and games in general, and that might be worth exploring if you guys were wondering. But anyway, that statue came from Vampire stuff, and I was thinking that it was essentially a little angel. I think it's technically a fairy, I'm not really sure, but it looks to me more so like an angel, and I was thinking that she got that in memory of the child maybe that she lost. I think that's kind of the route I'm going. It's not a happy one. I know. I just want to keep emphasizing that. Like, Agnes's story is not happy, and I did not make up this backstory. This was literally Sims lore throughout the different timelines in the Sims games, so this was not me. But maybe she actually did lose a child shortly after losing her husband. I was thinking maybe an infant. I wasn't thinking like a grown child or anything like that. And she got that statue in memory of them. And I'm thinking that that portrait too that came from Get Together was maybe, oh, who was Agnes's mom? I'm trying to think of the family tree in The Sims 3. I can't recall, but I was thinking that that was maybe a portrait of her mom, who was also a great spellcaster. I think that that's how the lineage goes, was actually on her mom's side. And I'm now working on the living room, which I did not give Agnes a TV. I do not think that is her style. I think she is pretty stuck in a certain time period, kind of with the house. The house hasn't aged, it hasn't changed, and neither has she. So she has these two really nice bookcases from Get Together, and I went into the debug menu a lot for Realm of Magic specifically to pull out different potions and things like that, because when you do place them from the debug menu, they like bubble and there's little poofs that come out of them and like hearts and other shapes depending on what they do. And I thought it was such a nice magical little element to add around the home. And I also have these two sofas, one a love seat, one a sofa, both from a base game, which was really nice to revisit because I don't use that furniture a lot because it's very, very fancy. I don't usually build homes that are this fancy pants, but I felt for Agnes, she deserved the best, the most classic and traditional furniture to go along with her probably very old Victorian house too. I was trying to think of how old I wanted this house to be in my head. Maybe it was a family home. Like maybe this is where she grew up. Maybe this is where her mom grew up, and just generation after generation has actually been in this home. Like it's an old Crumplebottom property. I don't know. But I'm also adding a few different like knitting decoration items as well. I think that Agnes does sit in that high back chair and knits things. I don't really know what she would knit because a lot of them seem rather joyful, but maybe it's actually a hobby that she really enjoys taking part in, and it kind of calms her mind a little bit. And she also has an easel in the corner, and then I do create this stand-up or upright piano, and again I'm using that trick with the cats and dogs console table, and I turn them around and I kind of stack two of them on top of each other. And that's the keyboard from City Living, and it actually is fully functional, which is amazing. And I wanted to do that here because I felt as though a grand piano would have worked in this build, but I really didn't think I had the room because this hallway is actually pretty small. The more I look at it, it was kind of somewhat of a miracle I was able to get this piano here and actually find a good spot for it, especially after I finished the living room. But yeah, she has an upright piano, and then I just keep adding more and more of these details to make it look older and run down and just really not well tended to. And I think I actually add a mouse hole as well, and I end up deleting it because it does actually mean that a mouse will start running around in that area and you have to place a trap to try to get rid of it. But wherever I ended up placing it when I was playtesting this build, Agnes couldn't reach it, and I was like, I don't have time for this, so I just got rid of it and I just called it a day. But I do end up putting that like upright, it looks like a spell book, but it's actually not, from Vampire Stuff. And I use these old radiators from Vampire Stuff as well. I put one in every single room in this house because I thought it was such a nice addition. And then I move on to the kitchen where, yet again, I use Vampire Stuff, and I ended up using, I keep saying Vampire Stuff. It's not a stuff pack, it's a game pack. My bad, it is a game pack. But I end up using these cabinets and matching countertops in the screen swatch because it's actually one of my favorite swatches of a counter that we have. I absolutely love it. The other swatches are also really pretty. There's kind of more of an orangey reddish wood, and then there's a black and white one, which is making quite the statement, but I ended up just using the green one because I thought it was softer and kind of worked a little bit better with the wallpaper. So over here is actually just the very small dining table. I don't think that Agnes has a big dining table to, you know, be there for guests. Like, she doesn't have guests over. This is not a thing, so she doesn't need this big place to entertain. So she just has the very small dining table, and in that other kind of nook there, I put the cauldron, which I'm real lucky I was even able to get that in this build, because we all know that the cauldron is freaking huge. And I probably could have sized it down like 1 or 2 to make it work in a smaller space, but I think when playtesting, the animations obviously don't size down appropriately, and it looks really, really awkward when you have the cauldron smaller and the sim is kind of like stirring it and working with it as if it's this huge thing. It just looked so very weird. But I do end up shoving it a little bit more in a corner because I think I put another side table over there. I'm not quite sure, but I think that's what I end up doing, and it still worked perfectly fine. I think Agnes cut into the wall a little bit, but to be frank, it was functional, and that's all I was really worried about. And then I ended up just cluttering up the kitchen a little bit, and this is actually where I end up putting one of these smaller details because I was thinking of Agnes in her older age, and I was thinking that potentially, kind of more I think about it, potentially her husband and maybe her young infant passed away from some kind of illness, and she actually makes like, what am I trying to say, like medicinal herbs and potions now on, like, and she sells them on like the magical market, and I think she's doing that to try to help people, which I think really ties into Agnes's being misunderstood, is what I'm trying so hard to articulate. I think she's misunderstood. I think she wants to do good. She just gets very frustrated and very upset that all the good in her life was taken from her so suddenly and so soon. And I don't know, that was just kind of the detail that broke my heart into complete and total shattered pieces. Was she's gone through all of these really terrible, like tragic things, and yet she still uses the energy that she has left to go ahead and help other people. And she doesn't need to be like recognized for it. She honestly doesn't really enjoy people that much, but she knows that there are good people out there and that people don't deserve the kind of heartache that she's endured. And that was the thought. So I won't go into it too much because it like genuinely makes me sad, actually. The more I think about it, like her story is just so sad, and I just love her and I just want good things for her. And I don't know what that really looks like at this point in her life, but we are moving on to the upstairs. So this is kind of like the little landing area, which I did struggle with very, very much. I actually am really curious to hear your guys' feedback on how this home was decorated, because I ended up matching and mismatching different like wood tones and just different styles. I tried really hard to make it look just like an older home, but I do repeat a fair share of items, and there's only so much that I can do to decorate a hallway or a landing space or something, because we don't have that many items, the more I went through the catalog, that are Victorian or that look old or weathered or that would kind of fit this vibe. So I tried really hard to find things and I just really struggled. So it may not be the absolute best, but I think it's the story that really brings this home to life. And actually what I'll do too is if you guys want to play with the version of Agnes Crumplebottom that I ended up creating, I will put her on the gallery as well when this home goes up on the channel, which I'm pre-recording. So that'll be on Monday, which I'm excited about. I say on Monday as if it is not Monday today. Clearly it went up today, but anyway, I will put Agnes up on the gallery along with this home, so if you guys want to play with her in this house, you can. Fair warning, she is flagged for custom content, and I don't really know why. I think I have some kind of default replacement. Maybe it's an eye replacement or a skin replacement. I honestly don't remember anymore because I don't go through my mods folder as much as I should. But yeah, she will be flagged for custom content, but just know that if you download her, there's going to be nothing missing. So there are no clothing items, there's no makeup items or accessories or anything that are custom content. It might just be as simple as an eye color, which I think I just gave her green eyes, so I don't really know what was flagging it, but I'm assuming it's like an eye or skin default replacement or something like that, which if you guys didn't know, if you have something like that as custom content, it seems that more often than not, it is literally a default replacement. So it's not like you're selecting a piece of custom content to add to your sim in Create a Sim. It is just present. It is literally the default replacement. So that's probably why. But if you guys are curious, you will be able to download her as well. And here I am just decorating the hallway, and that big portrait at the end, even though it looks a little spooky, even though that sim is supposed to be a vampire, I was thinking that maybe that was like a big portrait of her husband and she just keeps it there in the hallway because she likes to see him when she gets up in the morning. Again, sad, but kind of sweet at the same time. And this is actually her master bedroom, which I really liked. I kind of did struggle with finding pieces of furniture to fill the space. It was a really big room, like a lot bigger than I was actually imagining, but I ended up finding pieces of artwork that I thought worked. I did repeat a few of them, maybe just in different swatches, so they looked a little bit different. And she also has a vanity as well as the big fancy wardrobe from Vampires as well. That furniture is so beautiful and I really don't give it enough credit. It's very extravagant. It's not something that I would use in a lot of everyday builds. It's very specialized. It's a very specialized look, and it's not really something that I would use a lot, but in this build it was perfect. There are also a handful of grandfather clocks throughout this entire home because, you know, why the heck not? And then I actually give her kind of a little, it looks kind of like a little seance area, but it's more so the familiar orb on a small table, and then there are these two high-backed chairs as well. And I was thinking that that is just kind of where she either meditates a little bit, tries to connect with her familiar. I also give her a wand, so she has a wand in a wand display box behind this high back chair here. And I don't know, I just thought it was kind of a cute little area. It seemed very cozy, it seemed appropriate because I didn't want to give her an entire room that was dedicated towards like potion making and spell casting and stuff, because the last room is probably going to break your heart a little bit, and I'm sorry ahead of time, because the last room is actually a nursery, and it is the most decrepit room of the entire house. You guys will see when we get there, but that is her little kind of like chill spot in her bedroom where she has the little familiar orb, which I believe your Sims technically put in their inventory and actually like bind themselves to a familiar, so I don't think that's really just a display item. I think it is functional, but I just thought it would look really nice for screenshots, and if I end up playing with Agnes a little bit more and kind of exploring that, then maybe that'll be her familiar. I think that was the Phoenix one. I'm not quite sure. I didn't get that far in playing with spellcasters to really learn more about the familiars and whatnot. I know that they can help you, I think, in magical duels. I'm not quite sure, so I'm not going to speak to it as if I know what I'm talking about. But here's the one and only bathroom as well. So that's a little odd in this house since it is bigger. It's on the bigger side. I usually have like a half bathroom or even a full bathroom downstairs in houses this big, but in this one, I just felt as though it was okay to have the one bathroom upstairs closer to the bedroom compared to downstairs, especially since there's only one sim in this home, and I used all of the vampire stuff for the bathroom, and I made it in like this white and gold, and right now it actually looks very posh and very clean, but I also make it look somewhat decrepit. And now we're working on the nursery, which was actually really hard for me to work on. It really did break my heart that much. So they have the little like Realm of Magic. I think that one's from Realm of Magic because the other one from Vampires was a little too vampire-y. But yeah, there's the rocking chair right next to this really beautiful bassinet from Realm of Magic. And there are some portraits, and all the portraits in this home I'm thinking are like past family members and stuff like that. And I don't know, there's like a little train set on the ground. There's also a wardrobe and a bookcase and the dollhouse. That's actually like a big Victorian house. I think I sized it down maybe once or twice because it'll still be functional. If there were a toddler in this build, it would still be working. That wouldn't be an issue. There's also a room divider just because I honestly couldn't think of anything else to fill the room with. It's a really big nursery, really big kids room, but I wanted to make sure that it looked as though someone was ready, like there was going to be an infant, or there was, and it just happened very, very suddenly. Oh gosh, that literally just breaks my heart so much. And I don't really know. I think Agnes's story technically is they were decorating this nursery maybe because she was pregnant or because they were planning on having a child soon, like they were thinking of starting to try, and then he passed away. So maybe there wasn't actually ever a child there, but I don't know. I just felt as though this really spoke to her story, and I wanted to make it as authentic as I could to exactly what it was in the other iterations of The Sims. So I hope that you guys agree. I hope that it is kind of like a nice addition in the sense of just authenticity. But yeah, it's a really sad story. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Agnes, look it up. Definitely look it up and read about it, because the lore in The Sims used to be absolutely incredible. It used to be drama-filled. It used to be heart-wrenching. It used to be incredible, absolutely incredible. And I personally feel as though we're really lacking that in The Sims 4. So I felt that Agnes's story was so powerful that I should go ahead and replicate it in this game, because it almost makes it, I don't know, it's a little bit more reinvigorating, I think. It's really odd. I don't know. I have a very interesting relationship with Agnes's story, but I finished up the nursery and then I went on outside where there are just a couple of rocking chairs on the porches. So there's one out front and there's one out back, as well as a flower arranging station. So maybe she does do some flower arranging in her spare time, which I thought was actually kind of sweet because she's surrounded by things that are kind of decaying and breaking down, but she also works with flowers and kind of brings new life to things, which I thought was really sweet. She also has some gardening plots, maybe for some magical herbs and plants and things like that, as well as flowers. And then I add 2 gravestones, just like in The Sims 3. On her property, she had gravestones. So I was thinking that one was for her child and one was for her husband. And again, I used that angel statue next to the child's grave because I thought that that was a very sweet gesture. And I don't know. It is sad. I just can't say that enough. It is very sad, but I hope you guys did enjoy this very spooky build, and I will catch you next time I post a video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!